Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a story that's, well, it's not just interesting, it's genuinely quite alarming. It comes to us from a YouTube video, and it lays out a really stark cautionary tale uh, directly from the world of stock market trading.
That's right. And this source, it really zeroes in on one specific, pretty disturbing account. It's about a bank manager. Her involvement with the stock market, specifically getting into options trading, it just spiraled into something, well, truly destructive.
Exactly. And our goal here, it's to go beyond just recounting what happened. We want to understand the why behind it all. Why is this particular story such a powerful warning? Especially when you think about the intense temptations and, frankly, the huge risks in certain types of trading.
It really is a classic example, isn't it? How quickly things can get out of hand when speculation takes over. It can blind someone to the dangers, even, someone who probably should have known better given her job.
Precisely. And what makes this story so gripping right from the get-go is the sheer scale of the money involved. I mean, we're talking crores of rupees loss. But maybe even more shocking, that money, it wasn't even hers to begin with, which just adds this really heavy layer of betrayal.
Yeah.
Broken trust on top of all the financial ruin.
Yeah, and the source starts with that broader warning. Quite direct, actually. The stock market definitely has a downside. It specifically flags options trading as a particularly hazardous area.
Right, it mentions this statistic, which is pretty stark, claiming 90% of young people in India are reportedly losing their savings in options trading. It paints this picture of it becoming less about investing and more like a dangerous addiction, something that can really wreck lives.
And it's not just about losing the money itself, is it? As this story tragically shows, it can push people towards really desperate acts, including illegal ones, when they're just trying to dig themselves out of the hole created by these huge losses.
Which brings us straight into the specific case the video highlights. It's the story of Sakshi Gupta. She was a bank manager, held the position of RM, that's relationship manager, at ICICI Bank in Ramnagar, Kota, Rajasthan. So a good job, decent salary, and crucially, a position of trust within the bank and with its customers.
Yeah, a really stable foundation, you'd think. Everything you associate with professional success, responsibility.
So the story goes that sometime before 2020, she developed an interest in the stock market. And that interest, well, as it sometimes does, it quickly gravitated towards options trading.
And this is, I think, a really crucial point because unlike just buying and holding stocks for the long term, options trading involves contracts. Their value comes from an underlying asset like shares, but you're often trading with leverage.
Okay, leverage.
Mm.
What does that actually mean in this context for someone like her starting out?
Well, basically, it means you can control a large value of the underlying asset, let's say shares, with a relatively small amount of capital up front.
Yeah.
Now, this can amplify your gains really quickly, which is obviously the big attraction, right?
Yeah.
But the flip side is it amplifies losses just as fast. Often, it can lead to your entire initial investment just being wiped out very, very quickly if the market moves against you.
Ah, okay. So the risk isn't just linear, it's multiplied. And that's exactly what happened here. As she traded options, the losses just mounted and mounted. And pretty soon, her own money or salary, whatever savings she had, was all gone. She was stuck in that cycle, right? Trying desperately to make back what she'd already lost.
That's often called chasing losses.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful psychological trap. The pain of the past losses drives you to take bigger and bigger risks, just trying to get back to even instead of, cutting your losses and stopping.
Okay, and here's where the story takes that really dark turn. Because she was an RM, she had this built-in position of trust and access. She dealt with lots of customer accounts, had personal connections, especially with business people who had significant fixed deposits, FDs, at the bank.
And this is the critical point where she crossed a massive line, leveraging that trust, but in a completely criminal way. The story details how she started accessing these clients' FDs, basically their locked-in savings, and breaking them open without their knowledge, without their consent.
Wow. And to hide it, she came up with a pretty clever method initially, at least. She would actually go into the bank system and change the customer's mobile numbers linked to their accounts.
Yes, exactly. Replacing the actual customer's number with one belonging to, say, one of her relatives. This let her intercept the one-time passwords, the OTPs, those codes sent to your phone to verify transactions. By controlling those OTPs, she could bypass the customer entirely and authorize digital transfers of the stolen funds.
And this wasn't just a one-time thing, was it? The video says that over, 3 or 4 years, roughly 2020 to 2023, She systematically siphoned off this enormous sum, around 4 to 4.5 crore rupees.
Yeah.
Just to put that in perspective, a crore is 10 million rupees. So 40 to 45 million rupees. It's staggering, taken bit by bit over years, hidden by this digital trickery.
So now she's got this huge amount of stolen money, but she still has the underlying problem, right? The trading losses and that compulsion to get it all back. She needed somewhere to put this cash and, well, continue trading.
So the source explains her next move. She found an account belonging to an elderly person she knew, someone probably less tech-savvy, less likely to monitor online banking closely, someone she'd likely built trust with over time.
Right. And then she linked this person's existing bank account to a new demat account she opened. That's the account you need to hold electronic securities, like stocks and options. And crucially, she again used a relative's mobile number for this new demat account, keeping control over all the notifications and the verifications.
And into this demat account, she transferred the entire 4 to 4.5 crore rupees she'd stolen, all of it, over time. And then, just tragically, she went right back to the very thing that caused all the problems in the first place.
She kept trading options, buying stocks with this stolen capital, still desperately trying to recover those original losses, maybe hoping to make enough to secretly replace the stolen funds. But, the market, especially with speculative trading, it just didn't cooperate.
The video says she lost all of it, all the stolen money, too. Every single crore gone. Wiped out on the market, the very place she thought would save her.
It's incredible. And despite this elaborate scheme to hide the fraud, even moving to a different bank after those years, eventually the truth came out.
Yeah, the discovery apparently happened when her replacement at the ICICI Bank started reviewing the account she used to manage. They noticed suspicious patterns, discrepancies in the data. Things just didn't add up.
And the whole thing properly unraveled when a customer, maybe checking on their FD or their balance, inquired about their missing funds. That triggered a much deeper investigation, and it uncovered everything she'd done.
She was arrested. And when questioned, she confessed to it all. Her motivation for this huge fraud was exactly what you expect from the story. She lost all the money in stock market options trading while trying desperately to recover her own mounting personal losses.
It's just such a powerful, sobering story. And it forms the basis for the source's wider message about the market. It highlights that surprising fact, as the video points out, that someone with financial knowledge in a position of real trust could fall victim to this potent mix of, well, greed, desperation, and ultimately misuse of authority.
Yeah, and the source really contrasts this devastating outcome with what it presents as a much more sensible, sustainable approach to potentially building wealth. Things like long-term investing, using methods like SIP, systematic investment plans where you invest regularly, or buying fundamentally strong stocks. Companies with solid finances and good prospects.
Yes, it makes a very strong argument that trading, especially things like intraday or options trading, it's fundamentally different. The source basically asserts it's not some casual hobby you can dip into. It's effectively a full-time job. It requires intense focus, like 8 to 10 hours a day, deep research, constant monitoring, huge emotional discipline.
Yeah.
Often for returns that, for most people, just don't justify that immense risk and effort.
And the core warning really hammered home by this story is that trying to juggle a demanding job, like being a bank RM, with highly speculative trading, it's incredibly dangerous. It almost inevitably leads to neglecting your main responsibilities and, as we saw here, can push you towards desperate, ruinous decisions when those losses start piling up and panic sets in.
The source even suggests that, unfortunately, this woman's case probably isn't unique. They think similar situations where people are just ruined by options or intraday trading are likely to surface more often as these markets become more accessible.
So the video really uses this specific story as a critical lesson, aimed directly at you, the listener. It's a lesson on understanding the extreme risks, the psychological traps involved with things like options trading, precisely so you can avoid falling into similar situations, avoid financial destruction, or being pushed towards fraud out of sheer desperation.
Yeah, this deep dive into just one person's tragic story, it really reveals that potent mix: financial temptation, the addictive nature of speculation-like options, and the utterly devastating consequences. And it's not just about losing money, is it? It's the complete destruction of trust, reputation, and ultimately personal freedom.
It stands as such a stark counterpoint to that disciplined, long-term approach to the market the source talks about. It shows the absolute worst-case scenario when that discipline just gets lost to speculation and desperation.
So what does all this mean for you?
Well, considering how much financial information is out there, often promising quick riches, especially pushed through social media, how do you evaluate those opportunities? How do you critically assess the risk involved to protect yourself from dangerous speculation? And how do you avoid getting caught in a spiral that could lead to truly desperate, irreversible actions?